This is Sean Ryu and I'm back with another gear review. Today I'm going to be doing a gear review on my ultralight cook kit. Before I actually get into that, the first thing that I wanted to do was just kind of talk about how I progressed to this one and why I like this one and why I transitioned to this. This is just a representation of some of the cook pots that I have. I've got a lot of other ones. One of the things that I didn't want to do in transitioning to a lighter cook kit is, as much as the Foster pots or the beer pots are lighter options, I don't like them for several reasons. One is because of the fact that they have a tendency to be able to get crushed, and then if you put it in a plastic container to keep it from getting crushed, you're adding more weight, which really equates to the same weight probably of what I'm carrying with my ultralight cook kit. Not to mention the fact that I like titanium because of the fact that sometimes I do like to cook on an open fire. With titanium, I never have that problem. Don't have to worry about anything going on with the pot actually getting messed up. So here's one of the ones that I used. This was a Snowpeak 700. It's a great pot. I don't have any complaints about it. If I was going to do a through hike, this would definitely be one of the ones I would do, just because of the actual amount of food you could put in here. Not to mention the fact that it's just got more volume than the other pots. Everyone knows that when you do long distance backpacking, when you get hiker appetite, you're going to want to be able to cook more food. So this would be an easier way to do it. The thing I didn't like about this when I was transitioning to try and get it a little bit lighter as a cook kit was the top. For several reasons, I don't like these little tabs on here. To me, I never liked it. I didn't like how this thing stuck up. Not to mention the fact that the top itself, if I remember, weighs a little over an ounce. So to me, it didn't make any sense. I don't know why, but they used aluminum on this, if I remember correctly. It's not titanium. I know it's not titanium, but the rest of the pot is. So the first thing that I did going light was I just got rid of this, and I got one of these. If I remember correctly, this was actually made by 4 Stoves. It's a titanium lid. It weighs, if I remember, half the weight, maybe even less, or I'm sorry, maybe even more than the Snowpeak lid. So it was a way of shaving weight. It worked good for a long time. I used it, I loved it, but I decided I still wanted something lighter, but I also wanted something that just took less pack space up. So the next thing that I did was I transitioned to a Snowpeak 600. Everyone that knows anything about the Snowpeak 600 it's a smaller pot, obviously, but it doesn't have a lid. So the first thing that I did was I also got another lid from 4 Stoves. It's the same one as the other one. Obviously, it's going to be smaller when you compare the two. So that gave me the option of being able to have a lid. Not to mention the fact that, you know, when I looked at options, this was going to be a light option, so it worked for me. This is a great pot. I used it for a long time. I actually contemplated taking the handles off as a way of shaving even more weight on it. But then I started realizing I still wanted to be able to go lighter. Not to mention the fact that I also wanted a pot that didn't have handles on it, even though I could have taken it off of this one. So that took me to my next cook kit or next pot that I went to. And before I actually go into this, I'd like to kind of give it up for Chad from Sticks Blog. We had actually had some small dialogue on his YouTube channel, and I was looking for a pot that didn't have handles on it. The company I was looking to buy one from, he was actually doing a gear review, but that specific site no longer, they're actually going out of business. So they no longer were able to sell the pot, but he made some recommendations, and that's what led me to this. So before I do anything else, the first thing I want to do is just kind of give you a weight. You're probably not going to pick up the weight on my camera, so I'll just go ahead and let you know. Total with everything inside it is 3.8 ounces, and this is an entire cook system. It's got everything I need in order to cook my meals. So first thing is, this is a Cuban fiber stuff sack from Z-Packs. It's specific for a 550 milliliter pot. Works great. This is a Ruta Liqueur lid. It's made out of carbon fiber. I actually also picked up on this from watching a video that Chad from Sticks Blog had. And there's a couple reasons why I like it. One is because there's nothing on top to kind of poke out, which means you don't have to worry about as taking up space, unnecessary space, even though it's minimal. I carry a very small pack, so you know, to me, volume is everything. The other thing that I like about it is the fact that because it is carbon fiber, it doesn't get hot like something like this would. Not to mention the fact that with the lid that actually came with this cook pot, this is what it looks like. It was a way of shaving weight for one, obviously. The second thing is that with this tab or the pot holder right here, even though, or whenever you will cook on it, I already knew from previous experience with other cook pots that this is going to get hot. And because it gets hot, you know, it's just one more thing to have to deal with. So I just didn't want to have to deal with it, not to mention the fact that it was just another way of shaving weight, going with the real liqueur. The thing that I really like about this pot lid is the fact that, I don't know if you'll be able to pick it up on the video, but it actually extends out. The top extends out enough where when you actually go to pick it up, you can pick it up from the side like that and not have to worry about actually touching the pot. This is actually a Toaks 550 milliliter cook pot. If you look at it, there's no handles on it. It's just another way of shaving weight. For me, I found out that 550 milliliters, if I'm not doing a long section hike or I'm not doing a through hike, is actually perfect for me. And the reason why is because with most freezer bag cooking or dehydrated meals, you need probably somewhere around 1.5 to 2 cups max in order to cook those meals. And with a 550 milliliter cook pot, you actually get just a little over 2 cups. So, you know, you don't have to worry about really measuring things out or trying to figure things out, not to mention the fact that because it is a smaller pot, you know, in theory, it should actually warm up quicker than a bigger pot, just because of the fact that, you know, you've got something smaller that you're trying to warm up. The other thing is that you've got less water in there, so therefore it's going to warm up quicker. I've got a little pack towel. It's just been cut down to size. I use it specifically just to kind of wipe any water out after I'm done cooking. Not to mention if I need to wash anything off, it's just something there to help with that. Other thing is it serves just to kind of sit in there to keep things from rattling around. This is a titanium tri-wing stove. It's actually got the pot stand on it. One of the things you're going to pick up on quickly is the fact that I do use Esbit cubes, and I'll get into why in a little bit. With this, all you do is spread the wings out. For those that are not familiar with this, put your Esbit in the middle of it, and that's a way of actually, or that's what you're going to actually use as your fuel source. Another thing that I also have is I have a plastic spork. I had actually been using all kinds of titanium ones. I use a titanium spork, titanium long spoon, Snowpeak short titanium spork, just because I could get it to fit in my cook pots. But my brother had actually used this, and I realized, one, I didn't want to use a McDonald's plastic spoon like I see some ultralighters use. I wanted something just a little bit sturdier. I didn't want the little fork on the front of it. I knew I could also cut it down so that way it could fit in my pot. So for me, this worked. I also had like a titanium spork that folded down, but the thing that I noticed is that food and stuff always got in on the where it folded down, and I just didn't like that. So to me, it's just simple, it's light. The other spoons that I had and titanium stuff that I had, if I remember correctly, I think average somewhere between 0.3 ounces to 0.5 ounces. This one itself weighs 0.1 ounce. So it's a lighter option, and it works for me, so that's why I have it. I also have a mini Bic lighter. The reason why I actually choose to use a white one, and this is a good thing for those that don't, is that you can see through it, so you always know how much fuel you have. Like right now, if you look at it, you probably aren't picking it up on camera, but my fuel is somewhere around here. If I'm doing a long hike, I want to know exactly how much fuel I have before I leave. There's nothing worse than being on the trail and realizing that your lighter is not going to work for you because you don't have enough fuel. So I always know how much I have. If I have to go in for a resupply, I also know, if I need to pick up a new lighter. Chances are you probably never will. You can get a lot out of this. But it's just good to know. It's one of those things where I like to know where my fuel is. Another thing that I also carry is flint and steel. And there's several reasons why. One is, I went on a backpacking trip one time and it wasn't, something serious. My brother normally backpacks with me, so he always carries a lighter. So if something happens, I can always ask him for his. And a lot of times if you're staying at a shelter or close to a shelter, there's other people and they're not going to give you a hard time about borrowing their lighter. But for me, I always like to have a backup, just because of the fact that you never know. So I just think it's one of those things that's just about being responsible. The good thing is about this one, if I remember correctly, it weighs 0.1 ounces, maybe 0.2 ounces. It does have a ferrocerium rod right here, and the rest of this is magnesium. So a couple of benefits for this is that if you're using Asbit and you're just having a hard time trying to light it, just scrape off a couple pieces of magnesium. That'll help it light. Obviously, you can use it for fire starting, and it's a backup too. In case something happens to your mini Bic. The other thing is that I'm trying to see if I got it up here. I don't have it up here. Well, anyway, that's what that is. The other thing I have is titanium windscreen, and this windscreen I actually bought from Chiwiz. Chiwiz sells them on his site. The windscreen that he sells is this exact one, but the difference is that I actually cut this one down. It was actually a little too tall for my pot, even with using a stand. As you can tell with the pot in here, it's almost to the top. When I first bought, or when I had this before I cut it down, I want to say it was probably about this high, and like I said, this was the smallest one that he had. So what I did was I just cut it out, and I cut a little notch in here. That way, if I want to use any of these old cook pots, when you stick it in, the handles will still stick out. That way, instead of it pushing down on it or not fitting, or the handles having to be inside, you don't have to worry about the handles getting hot. So just something I did. The other thing that I like about Chiwiz's windscreens is that they interlock. Unlike some of the ones I've seen where you actually have to use a paper clip. I'm not a big fan of having to carry stuff around that isn't necessary. And I know people are saying, okay, it's just a freaking paper clip. But for me, it's just one more thing you could lose. And so if you lose a paper clip, yeah, you can still use a windscreen, but I mean, it's just more convenient. So that's the reason why I like that one. Most people should probably know what this is. It's a silicone hot lip from Snowpeak. And basically all you do is you just stick it on your pot, like so. That way when you're drinking, titanium gets very hot. Any kind of metal is going to if you're heating it up. This is just a way of keeping your lips from being burned. So it's something. Camera died on me, so I had to go ahead and charge up the battery a little bit before I could start filming again. But I left off with saying that one of the other things I don't like about this is obviously, you're going to have to pack this out versus this, where there's just no extra weight. So this is something that even when you're done using it, you're still going to have to pack this thing out, which means you're still carrying like another 3.5, 4 ounces of something that just serves no purpose. The other thing is that when you use these, you don't know how much fuel you have left all the time. I mean, I can gauge it based on, I knew I did 8 minutes of cooking, 10 minutes of cooking, and I have an estimate that normally I can get about 45 minutes out of these, maybe 50 minutes, depending on how I'm regulating the stove and everything. So for me, it's inconvenient. With these, I know exactly how many I need in order to cook my meal. I know I need one a day and that's it. I can look at it. I know I've got 5 days left. With this, that's not the case. And I often do long distance hiking. So the other problem that I run into with these is that, if I'm going in for a resupply, I may have a little bit left, but I'm going to toss this and just buy a new one. Or when I'm done with my backpacking trip, I'm going to come home. This thing is going to have a little bit of fuel. It could be halfway full, but because of the fact that it's not going to be enough for my next trip, chances are I'm probably just going to throw this out, so I end up wasting these. So that's one of the reasons why I don't like using these, or some of the reasons. Some of the other options are this, which is an alcohol stove. This is actually from Chiwiz. It's a great stove. I have no complaints about it. I've just realized that I don't like alcohol. Yeah, if I'm doing a through hike, yeah, I'm going to use alcohol because of the fact that Esbit is harder to find. But for my normal backpacking purposes, this is not going to be something that I want to use. Now, a couple things about this. You know, here's a wire screen. You put your fuel in there, you put your pot on there, you're good to go. You know, that's one option. Here's another option where it's another pot stand, and both of these are from Chiwiz's site. Put your pot on there. They're all very light options as far as stoves are concerned. They work. I have no complaints about it. But I'll tell you why. Well, and here's another thing too, is that this is actually the top to this. So you actually screw it on, and then you can actually use this to put SBIT in. So it serves as for alcohol as well as SBIT, which is good, which makes it more multi-use. But the thing that I don't like about alcohol stove is, one, you're still going to be carrying an empty container around when you're done using it. The second is that, you know, I've tried different types of alcohol bottles, and yeah, I mean, they're not going to leak that often, but I've had situations where I've knocked the bottle over and spilled fuel, so I've lost some of my fuel. I've had situations where I was pouring it in and wasn't paying attention, and I ended up pouring it somewhere where I wasn't supposed to pour it, or, you know, wasted some of my fuel. With this, that's not going to happen. I mean, you're not going to spill this, you're not going to drip it, it's not going to get on stuff. The other thing is that, you know, this is not going to fit in there. So it's just something else that's going to just take up more space in my pack. The other thing is that with these, I normally, with alcohol stoves, on average, I need somewhere around about an ounce of fuel to do the same thing that this does on half an ounce of fuel. So that's another reason. Other than that, you know, if you have any kind of questions or concerns, please feel free to ask, comment below, like and subscribe. Thank you for watching my video. This is Shum Ryu.